You're listening to the Be the Bridge podcast with Latasha Morrison.
Well, we have a special guest for you. This shouldn't be a surprise, but this is in honor of our anniversary edition. Yes, Be the Bridge is 4 years old, and I wanted to talk to a few people that were there from the beginning. So I have Miss Jennie Allen, and there's something new that's added to her bio, and I just got to read this to you guys. Jennie Allen is the New York Times bestselling author of Get Out of Your Head, the founder and visionary of If Gathering. She is a passionate leader following God's calling on her life to catalyze a generation of women to live what they believe. Jennie has a master's in biblical studies from Dallas Theological Seminary and lives in Dallas, Texas with her husband, Zach, and their 4 children. Thank you, Jennie, for joining us.
Oh, girl, this is so fun. Congratulations, Tasha. And I cannot believe it's been 4 years. I cannot believe that.
I know. Does it seem longer or shorter?
It seems way shorter. But at the same time, so much has happened.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it feels like we've been doing this forever, If Gathering and Be the Bridge. But gosh, I mean, it also feels like yesterday we were in our first little, gathering of our
I
little
know.
circle.
We did, yeah, and we didn't it's funny how you hesitated on that because it had no name. There was no name. There was no
what
name.
did we call it? Yeah.
We just call it the circle.
Yeah. And then there's been so many names since. So I'm like, what's the current name? But anyway, it was just our little circle, and it was totally organic, and man, did God use it.
And then from there, once I formed an organization, then we started calling it Be the Bridge groups. But our group originally, there was no such thing as Be the Bridge. And so our group originally was just the circle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know. And I mean, time flies. And we started meeting back in 2014.
Okay.
2014.
Yeah. Which is crazy because that's the year that If Gathering started.
Okay. I want you to tell the story.
Tell me. Yeah.
Okay. I want to tell you a story. How did we meet?
All these stories are so good, and they have 2 perspectives, like Tasha's perspective and mine that are very different. My first memory of you is with the tacos. Did we meet before that at If Gathering? Tell me that story, or you tell me your side of the story.
No. Okay. So I tell the story, and you said that how we met, that we both have our own versions of how we met. Okay. So just let me just be honest. There are a lot of ladies in Austin named Jen and Jenny and Jennifer. And so
it was a popular name in the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
And so I was getting confused at which Jenny or Jen, who was Jenny or Jen. But I actually met you personally for the first time after the first If Gathering at that luncheon that we had.
Yep.
And so that was the
part's
first
the same.
meeting. Okay, so that part's the same.
We're on track so far.
Okay.
Yeah, except, so I didn't know you were going to be there, though. So
right.
My friend Kim was like, hey, Jenny, I have heard that you want If Gathering to be diverse and that you care about that. And I'd love to go to lunch with you and tell you about my experience. And maybe she said she'd bring a friend or something, but I did not expect what I showed up to. So it was like 5 of y'all and me, I think.
Yeah. We did the gang up. Yeah, we did the gang up.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, and my heart kind of sank when I got there because I thought, let's be real. I knew I was not doing a good job. The If Gathering was not doing a good job. And gosh, still, I cannot claim that we are doing a good job. We've got so far to go. So I knew it was going to be interesting. But what I didn't know is, one, that we would have so much fun and that it would be it would be so life-giving to me. And then 2, that you all would roll up your sleeves and say, we want to help. And that was the thing that I couldn't believe. And I walked out with a new sisterhood. You guys had this dream of pulling together, I think it was Kim Patton originally saying, hey, let's meet after this and let's do this little group together. And I think we called it a reconciliation circle or
we didn't, we were calling it the circle. We just really said, I think actually you said, I would love to get some of my, and this is kind of what sparked the conversation. After we talked and you heard our experiences, first of all, I was around that, and you came over and you sat down, we had lunch, and then you said, I would love, like, this has been so good. I would love to get some of my friends together with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it was so good. And I did genuinely want to see If Gathering go in this direction. And I did not know how to do it. And I knew that. And so it was the beginning of something super special. And we kind of all invited people, and our group was pretty amazing. And we started meeting, was it once a month?
Yeah, we were meeting like once or twice a month. We would kind of mix it up between social meetings, and then also we were meeting at the African American Culture Center in Austin. And so we would meet to have a session, but we had no curriculum. There was no plan. We were just kind of talking, and we had some poignant questions that we would talk about for the first like couple months. And then we went out for happy hours a couple of times, lunch, we wanted to get to know each other outside of our profession. But I think the key thing about that, nobody spoke about what they did outside of the group.
That's so true.
And I didn't know half the ladies there and what they did.
But it was a power team.
Yes, it was. It was.
It just so happened almost everyone there had different realms that they were leading in. And I think, but I think it blew us away. And I just remember so many amazing conversations that began to change my life those first few months. But all of this, for context for everybody listening, happened before Ferguson. And I bet it's hard for people to remember life before Ferguson. So why don't you, Tasha, just talk about what Ferguson meant and why that was significant that we were meeting prior to that?
I know. Look at you. Like, wait a minute. I'm interviewing you. You're not interviewing
me. I can't answer that. And I wonder what you'd say. I can't answer that because I know nothing was literally different, right? I mean,
it was, I think the thing, what we were having conversations, Ferguson allowed us to have even more tangible conversation. We were really talking about life experiences. But really Ferguson allowed us to tap into the lenses that we were seeing the world through, and then it allowed us to tap into the racial disparities, that, the systemic issues that caused some of the issues that we were seeing. And so it allowed us to have a deeper conversation. I don't know. I think I don't know if we would have gone as deep if Ferguson would not have happened. Like, what for you during this time stands out the most? Like, what stands out the most for you?
Well, so many things. For one, I came in very naive, even though I had done a lot of training for adoption in this world. So my youngest son is from Rwanda and is African American. And so I'd done a lot of the white privilege training through that process. Praise God, whoever, I can't remember what agency we used, but they did train us somewhat. So I had read in this field and all that, but I was so naive. And I think the experience at that point, prior to it hitting the news and everything, was an awakening for sure. And I look at Ferguson, and I specifically remember I have a vivid memory of all of us being on the floor. I don't know if we were praying or why we were sitting on the floor, but I remember like looking into several of your eyes, and it was different. There was some grief and sadness that I remember seeing in you and over you guys when you would talk about what was happening. And I remember thinking like the ground had shifted. And that's why I ask you that question, because I still don't know to you how the ground shifted. I know for me, it was the beginning of the world waking up, the white world. I don't think it was a secret to people of color that the world needed to wake up. But I think what what Ferguson and the ongoing media stories did in the years following just continued to show that there was a massive problem and that we weren't as far along as we wanted to think as a country.
That time for me is, I think we explained probably why we approach a situation like that as it related to systemic police brutality from the lens that we were looking at it from, and the lens that that community was looking at it from. Because for a lot of people, that was the first time that something like this maybe had been caught on video, or that it touched the world in that sense, where our grandparents and our parents have been talking about this for decades and centuries. And so, but I think this was, one of those instances that where video, you were actually seeing video. And I think this one was different even from Trayvon and a few others that happened in New York, even like early, 10 years prior, where, phone video was seen. And I think, when we start, when we attach to anything being a collective group, a lot of times you're thinking about your brother, you're thinking about your child or your father. And I think the thing, that kept gripping me during that time is, despite all the details in this, was there was a child, that was 18-year-old, a senior, like any other 18-year-old that has ups and downs in his life or whatever, but laid on the ground for 4 hours. Like that right there. So I think it unleashed just so many systemic issues within that town. And when the history of East Missouri, you can't detach that from that. And so I think that right there was the thing for me, looking at how the response was in this group. And I like to tell people that story is the story of the group in this sense, where a lot of people who are doing Be the Bridge groups now, one of the things that they have to kind of conquer, and one of the rules they set up, one of the values they set up, is that of listening. And there was a lot of respect in that room, even if there was an agreement or understanding. But what I like to tell people is that the white women in that room gave the people of color in that room the gift of listening. And what way has our friendships maybe challenged you? Like what ways, what ways have I challenged you? Have I challenged you?
Oh, girl. I can't even imagine my life without you. I cannot imagine my life without you. And I mean that on so many different levels. I mean, we both started organizations around the same time. You are a dear friend when it comes to a leader that was in the trenches with me, building beside me. And we've been through a lot together, just behind the scenes as friends and leaders. And so there's the just, regardless of what I've learned from racial reconciliation, having a co-laborer that's building beside you, that we are just slugging it out in those early years of building something, has been irreplaceable. But when it comes to racial reconciliation, from the moment we met, Tasha, you have pushed for me to understand, and I mean that in the most gracious way, because you've always had grace for me at the same time, but you pushed, and you've been intentional about that pushing, and you haven't let me fatigue or become apathetic. And it's the greatest gift, because I believe in the work so much. And if I didn't have women of color beside me, educating me, helping me, pushing it along, I think I just don't trust myself. I would have, I don't know. I would have rested on my privilege and checked out. And instead, I just feel like I've been blessed to get to see the world through your eyes again and again and again. And what that's done for me is caused me to have greater empathy and to care so deeply. I mean, I texted you last night. I forgot this was today, or I would have just talked to you about it. But I watched Just Mercy last night, and
Yeah.
and I mean, I could just weep again at it that this is real and happening, and how do we help? And I just think you've helped me carry that torch that I wanted to carry, but I didn't know how to carry. And so I thank you for like sticking with me, because I've carried it badly and I still do at times. And yet your grace has helped me not put it down and to keep doing it better, and to just, not give up on it. And I am so grateful for you, because you have that weird balance. And the reason you're so gifted at this work, and I tell people this all the time, of being able to kick you in the gut while holding you and hugging you and telling me how much you love me. And I'm like, how do you do both? But you do both so effectively. And I'm so moved, because I'm convicted, but I also feel loved and safe, and to grow and to stay and to keep going. And so I know everybody wishes they had a Tasha in their life, but it really is. You're one of my greatest gifts.
Yeah. And I like the fact that, your circle of friendship, especially with women of color, has expanded a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the only one that's,
No.
giving you truth, or kicking you in the behind, or, but I do like your response, because we have a lot of difficult conversations and challenging conversations, and, and we take a lot of this in increments, but, your response has always been, like, okay, I know, like you're always listening. So I think that's really good. You don't run away from and hide from me in this,
No.
And so, so I think that's good. And we do know, like, one of the things, I always tell you is that this is a lifestyle, and you're going to miss it. You're going to make mistakes, but you get back up, you learn from them, and you keep moving. What does restorative justice look like to you? Like, what does this look like to you? Like,
I think it's really grown for me. Mm-hmm. I'm someone who feels very called to preach the gospel, and that's my calling and that's my lane. Right. I've been trained to do it. DTS, like, this is my lane. That's what If Gathering exists for. However, I've always felt like this was such an issue. I don't pick a lot of issues, right? I'm not very issue based. I kind of stick to my lane. But this for me was always an issue that bumped so hard and tragically up against the gospel that it had to be handled and dealt with from our stage. And
that was powerful what you just said. Say that again.
I'm not someone
you gotta repeat that.
Okay. So
you said it bumped so hard against the gospel. Like, I think, first of all, I love that. And
it was, I mean, it's atrocious. And I mean, I felt it last night in the movie too. There's so many things that are atrocious that bump up against the gospel. But one value I've had in all this is I'm not going to pick every issue, because I can't be educated and I can't actually live behind the scenes every issue that I care about. So I'm going to pick the ones that I can live out, and those are the things I'm gonna use my platform for. And because of you, and because of so many friends in my life that would speak truth to me, I was able to walk this out in private to where I felt confidence to speak about it more publicly. And so when it came to reparations and the politics of everything, I think I've always I haven't understood. Now, I was a poli-sci minor and a broadcast journalism major. I saw my life as someone who thought problems could be solved politically, right? Like, that was up until the point of being about 25. I wanted to go into political storytelling because I know, I've never even talked about this, but because I really believed that was where the hope was. Now, as I grew up and in the faith, I realized, no, the hope is through the church, and how can we reform there? Now, it's not to say that there's not a place for political reparations and all of that. That is where my I guess with some balance has come back into my life, where I really am watching and hopeful for. I mean, I look at Just Mercy and what Brian Stevenson's doing, and I'm like, how do I help? How do I give? How do I help? I believe there's things we can do with reparations in a way that politically that matter. But the way I really feel called is through the church, because we've got to be leading this. And you and I have seen the power the church has. And so that's not to negate the other. It's just to say, for me personally, my calling really shifted from politics to local church and to discipleship. And where I think we can help the church is to be engaged in the work, number one, relationally, to not ignore the work, to see the problem and to name the problem as racism, and to do the work of repairing. And that begins, I've seen it best happen through relationships. That's how it's happened in my life. And that's how I think the church is best poised for it to happen in theirs. And that's why I believe in Be the Bridge so deeply, is because it's not just kumbaya, let's get together and let's talk about our problems. It's contagious hope. It is, let's spread this possibility that maybe we have been naive here, especially white women and white men. We have not participated in what Jesus cares about in the way that he cares about it. And how do we realign our lives? And you've taught me, like, it's using my voice, it's leveraging my relationships and my platform. It is learning and reading and growing and not staying stagnant. And in the 101 conversation, you push me to the deeper, harder conversations. And so I think that lifestyle for me has led to more advocacy, has led to hopefully more, growth. At the same time, I just want to say over and over and over and over again, because I know this, because my life and our office, and we've had issues, behind the scenes here. Like, we are not doing this near as well as I want to be. And it grieves me, but yet the only way forward is to keep walking, like to not give up, and to say, even in my text last night, it was like, Tasha, I'm still in this with you. Like, I'm still believing for greater things. And I want to do the work, and I don't want to get complacent here, because it matters. And I believe it is an absolute reflection of the gospel to the world and how we handle this and care about this.
Yeah. That's good. These conversations are ongoing, and we know this is not work that happens overnight. And so it's that lifestyle of change. But what I would like to hear from you, where do you see, like, you were really good. Like, you saw this for me before I saw it for myself. Like, let's talk about that. Because I have some audio.
I was really confident if I told you to record it.
You were like, you were. And this is when I was like, wait a minute, like, this is not the same girl that I met in that restaurant. Like, you were like, listen, and I remember that conversation so well. It was in your living room. And we hadn't known each other that long. But you were like, this is it, Tasha. And not knowing all the questions I had in my head, not knowing like all the things that God had done, the threads that were there even before 2012, like the threads that have always been in my life when you look back. But sometimes it's hard to see. There's several people that are not surprised at the work that I'm doing now. Most of my friends who know me, they're not surprised at all. I'm the one that's still surprised.
Right. Oh, girl. I mean, let me just tell everybody a little bit what it was like, because you weren't leading the group, but you were. You just kind of naturally were.
Yeah.
And you were alive. Like, there was something about the energy in the room, and you making sure, bringing layers to what was happening in the room, that you made sure that everybody felt heard. And there was a conviction in you that was deep, and that conviction was able to pull everyone up to the table and have them see each other. And I have no doubt that group went so well because of your leadership. And it, we listened because you taught us to listen. We cared because you taught us to care. We were, we were not I always think about the part in your book where you teach us, and you've had me read other books, just about the white women crying all the time. There's a name for it.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, you got that from us. But that white guilt, you taught us, like, hey, that's not okay. And so you led the group in such a way that we could all learn, and we could all be there and be present, and people didn't quit. I mean, I look back at that, I'm like, wow, like everybody really leaned in and stayed. And I know that couldn't have been easy for more than half the room that were women of color. So, and especially during that season where Ferguson takes off and there's so much hurt. So the fact that I just saw a supernatural grace and gift over your life to be able to take different people coming from different situations and bring them together. And I've seen you do that again and again in the most loaded of times with the most, divided people. And it truly, I believe, Tasha, I felt that then and I see it still today. It is a supernatural gift from God that you are uniquely built for this with your personality and your gifts, and you are uniquely appointed and anointed for it. Like it's supernatural. And because everybody can listen. I've watched it in a room because a lot of times when you're speaking, I'll stand in the back to feel the room out,
Right.
And I've watched in rooms where it's primarily white. Like I'm thinking of smaller rooms that I've watched you do this. And I'm thinking to myself, she's doing what she does to me, which is like saying the hard thing and the room's laughing and leaning forward and like they're all in. And I just think, wow, like this is so perfect for you. And you are able to strategically, that's the other thing I saw in you quickly, is you were able to strategically think of how to multiply it. And you didn't, I mean, I called you weeks before and said, hey, let's do this conversation on our stage. Let's take what we've been doing privately and do it on the stage. Well, people hadn't been doing that at that point publicly in the church and in Christendom. A huge risk. And yet you were like, yeah, let's do it. And we said, hey,
wait a minute.
Was it your idea? See, this is where
No, it was your idea. It was definitely your idea. But when you asked me that,
I was going to skip over that part.
You always skip over that part. I was like, first you said create a guide. And I had already, like you said, been thinking of just this process we have been going through. And I had written these words down: awareness, acknowledgement, shame and guilt, like just before this, probably a few months before this conversation. And so you were like, can you do a guide? You had just had If Pray. And you said something short, like we need something simple. I know it's so complex, but like just to get people started. I remember you saying that, right? And that's when I was like, okay, to the guide. So that was around October. And then it wasn't until December, like almost January. It was like basically January, where you said, we want to model this. We need to model. It's not just about having a guide. Let's model it.
Yeah, that's where I was like, I feel like it might have been a few weeks before F, which is the 1st of February. So that was, more than
it was very close. Maybe. It was very close.
And then we just threw y'all up on the stage. This is the part I don't like. Because you wanted me to introduce you, and I'm like, Tasha's got it. Like, I know where to be found. And I'm sitting up in the top, like in the balcony, like so far away from the stage.
Oh my God, that was so funny. Just that. I mean, it wasn't funny.
You were like, Jennie, don't. Oh.
Before we close up, okay? So, I know you have so many, voices that are inspiring you and impacting, and that are impacting your life. And we just talked about some of the things that you're doing in your life personally, but for the people who are listening, even if a person is, white like you, what encouragement do you have to white women? And then I would want to hear some encouragement you have for women of color.
Okay. I think
know I got you there. I'm sorry. That wasn't on the sheet.
That's good. No, I love that question. I think for white women, I would just say, don't fatigue. I think when life gets harder, in our private worlds, and we're recording this in the midst of, quarantine and COVID-19, it's easy to want to comfort ourselves with things that are easier. And I've really prayed, Tasha, for you and for this work, because I don't want this to slow down. I think as hard as your job is and the work is, and I watched Brian Stevenson's last night, I'm like, Lord, persevere in this, persevere this work, because it will change over generations, as it has, right? It's gotten better. Martin Luther King couldn't have imagined, where we would be today, and yet he would still dream of a better world. And so we have to do this. I remember one time telling you, and I guess maybe it's the same advice I'd give to women of color too, listening, and people of color, is just don't fatigue. Like, this is, I know building a bridge is hard, and it's got to happen from both sides. And that's, I think, what's been so beautiful about our friendship is, you kept building on your side and I've kept building on mine. And so we've gotten to see great fruit from that. And we've gotten to see a bridge that works, where we bring many friends over onto that bridge, and they've enjoyed the fruit of that work. But that work was done in such a way that we could have both walked away at different points. And especially you. And I want to say that this work is way, we fatigue. You guys get hurt. And that's the perspective I would say, is just recognize like how costly. I look at that movie last night with Just Mercy, and I watched the faces and the cost to the people of color that had to stand up and say the hard thing. And it was just so high, the risks that they took. And so you've got to recognize as white people that fatigue is nothing compared to the hurt and the fear. And so let's just stay building. And to women of color, I hope that there is, I hope this is what I'll pray for you. And I pray for Tasha all the time, that there would be vision of your kids' and that you could see that this work is building into their generation and their lives. Yeah. And because I don't know that the fruit comes fast enough to feel rewarding here. Right. And you would have to answer that question. But I'm sure you wish daily, like it all went faster. And yet I know it matters. And I know for generations, it will matter more than we can even imagine.
Yeah, that's good. I think that is one of the reasons why a lot of, people of color that I see that are doing this work, they're doing this not just for themselves. They're not really doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the generation after. And when I talk to my grandmother and I say, why did you march for voting rights in North Carolina, seeing, the danger of being arrested or being beaten or murdered or, dogs or water hose, just so that you can have the right to vote, the power of that. She saw the power of that, and that's why I'm so adamant as it relates to voter suppression and stuff like that, because people gave their lives. And so I asked her that question and she said, I did it for my children. She's like, I wish I didn't have to do it because it was hard. It's scary, but I did it for my children. And therefore, that sacrifice, the blood sacrifice that one generation makes for another, is also that next generation could breathe a little bit more. They can walk further on that bridge, And so I think that's what we're headed for. We're going to get fatigued. We're going to get tired. Now, if you had money and money wasn't a limit, and we're going to close up with this, and there were no obstacles or barriers, what would you do to move us closer towards racial healing and racial reconciliation? If there were no obstacles, there was no limit, no barriers, if you were just dreaming, what would you do?
I think exposure and education are so primary in this. And so the more you can get, I just am so in awe of the visions God gives you, Tasha, because the whole youth and adoption world, and basically you're fighting for the next generation. And the more we can fight for them to understand the issues at a younger age, I'm like, where do you cut off the head? Where's the, after watching that movie last night, I'm just so mad. I'm like, where do you go where you're going to get the most change quickly? And it's young, because if you can hit young before the hate has built and built, over time, and they see the hate when they're more pure-hearted and they're more open to change and growing and learning. I just think the results are faster and you're cutting it off younger. I mean, I would love, and I want to speak to those that are listening that are in their 60s, 70s, older 50s, that I've seen change. I mean, I've seen them be some of the greatest reformers and advocates here. So I'm not dismissing the responsibility we all have, but if I had all the money in the world and I could do anything to like blow wind in the sail of what God is doing through you, I would say get it to every school, to every youth group, to everybody under the age of 21 that you can, every college campus. And let's see that next generation do this differently, because I think that's where we're going to see a generational shift, is when a generation rises up and says, not on our watch. And I think our generation, a lot of us did raise up and say that. But I think the next generation could do it in mass form and from an early age. And that would be really powerful.
I agree. And that is exactly why we started Be the Bridge Youth. And we just had an incredible training with youth. And just as we were talking about some of the racial disparities, and as you start connecting the dots for them and giving them context, they are left with their mouth open, because, just like as you're learning so much about history and our systems now, a lot of this stuff is hidden from us. It's stuff that we don't talk about. It's stuff if it's not a part of our circle, we don't hear about. And I agree that if this next generation, if they are taught, just imagine like if we were like Germany in the sense, teaching, all history, even unfavorable history, telling the full story of people in our history from the age of 5 on, just ideologies, all that stuff would begin to shift. So I agree. And I'm so grateful for you, friend. And I want you to tell people how can they follow you? We'll have this in the show notes, but where do they follow you on all the socials?
Yeah. So I just go to jennieallen.com and everything is there. JennieAllen.com.
Okay. And so we'll put that information up there for you guys to follow. Jennie, thank you for being on our anniversary edition. And, and just really talking and using your voice in this and sharing a little bit of your heart today. So,
well, let me just say one thing, since it's your anniversary, you know what I do for birthdays and things, I make sure that I give everybody, I make them get on the hot seat of receiving some love and praise, because it's your day, girl. It's your day. So let me just say this, that you have run this race so well, and it is not an easy race, and you are running it with such grace and with the love of Jesus all over you. And it is beautiful to watch. And I'm so honored to get to watch it as close as I get to watch it. So I love you, friend. Happy anniversary. And I'm excited for the 20th and the 30th anniversary. It's going to keep going.
All right. Okay. So I did say, what do you see for Be the Bridge in the next 4 years? And you just said it. You see another 30 years. Okay.
I do. Sorry. I know.
Okay.
I know on some days it's like, oh, darn. but I know in heaven we will say yes. You're glad we did the work. So
yes. So I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Love you, friend.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening. For more bridge building resources, visit our website at bethebridge.com.